Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ese Anibo. I'm talking about comparative anatomy of vertebrates. Kindly click on the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell. So what is comparative anatomy? Comparative anatomy is the study of the similarities and the differences in anatomy, that's the body structure of two or more species. Comparative anatomy scrutinizes the body structure of different species of animals in order to understand the adaptive changes they have undergone in the course of evolution from common ancestors. Comparative anatomy is closely related to evolutionary biology and phylogeny. All these pertain to the evolution of species. I need to recall that evolutionary biology is a branch of biology that's primarily concerned with the evolution of species. Evolutionary biology is the subfield of biology that studies the evolutionary processes that produce the diversity of life on Earth. Evolutionary biology studies the history of life forms on Earth. Evolution is actually based on the theory that all species are related and they gradually change over time. It is speculated that the current population of organisms can trace their heritage back to a single common ancestor, often called the last universal common ancestor, or LUSA. Let me recall that phylogeny is the history of the evolution of species or groups, especially in reference to lines of descent and relationships among broad groups of organisms. Phylogeny studies relationships among different groups of organisms and their evolutionary developments. The relationship among organisms are depicted in what is known as a phylogenetic tree. Relationships are determined by shared characteristics as indicated through the comparison of genetic and anatomical similarities, and that is precisely where comparative anatomy comes in. What is comparative vertebrate anatomy? Comparative vertebrate anatomy is a comparative study of the 9 major organ systems found in vertebrate animals with considerations of human systems. The systems could be 9 or 10 depending on how you look at the system. The systems are the integumentary system, muscular system, the skeletal system. Because the muscular system and the skeletal system are closely related, some refer to both as one system, musculoskeletal system. We must not forget the digestive system, respiratory system, excretory system, the circulatory system, reproductive system, nervous system, and endocrine systems. So all these systems are compared between vertebrate animals, and in comparison, the evolutionary and functional aspects of anatomical differences are highlighted, such that scientists can trace the history of evolution by comparing the anatomical structures of different species and the physiological functions of these structures. There are some terms that you must not forget as far as comparative anatomy is concerned. That leads me to the major concepts of comparative anatomy. The 3 major concepts of comparative anatomy are the analogous structures, homologous structures, and vestigial structures. What are analogous structures? Analogous structures are similar structures in different organisms from different ancestors. These structures look similar and perform the same functions. For instance, insects have wings, birds have wings, so the wings are analogous structures. These wings are used for flight, that's they perform the same function, but the structure must not necessarily be the same. So the wings of insects and the wings of birds have different structures, but they perform the same function, that is flight. So they are analogous structures. Analogous structures emerge from what we call convergent evolution. Let's recall that convergent evolution is the process by which unrelated or distantly related organisms evolve similar body forms. Convergent evolution occurs when species occupying similar ecological niches, that is, similar environments, adapt in similar ways in response to similar selective pressures, that's environmental problems. You have organisms independently finding their way to the same evolutionary solution for the same environmental problems. because of the need to fly, you have insects and birds developing wings. So that is how convergent evolution brings about development of analogous structures. These are illustrations of analogous structures. You have the fore and hind limbs you find in the insect and in the horse, both used for running. So the fore and hind limbs are analogous structures for the insects and horse. Then the fin you have in the fish and the flipper of the dolphin are analogous structures, both used for swimming, though the structures are different. Then the wings of birds and the wings of insects are analogous structures. I have said that before. Homologous structures. Homologous structures are similar structures in two organisms which have the same ancestor, but the functions performed may or may not be the same. For instance, you have whales, birds, and humans all having the same arm bone structure. When you look at the arm of these animals, you find out that the arm bone there is humerus, and in the forearm you have the radius and ulnar. Some might be wondering, the whales and humans having the same ancestor? Actually, several million years ago, there existed an ancestor that was similar to both humans and whales. The offsprings that evolved were new species. Even newer species, the upper limb of human, the forelimb of the dog, horse, bat, bird, and seal are all homologous structures. When you look at the arm bone, you can see the humerus is the bone that is common to the arms of all these animals. Then the forearm, you have the radius and ulnar. At the wrist, you have the carpal bones. And the hand, you have metacarpals. And the digits have phalanges. So this is similar structure for the human upper limb and the forelimb of the dog, horse, bat, bird, and seal. So they are homologous structures. Homologous structures actually came about by means of divergent evolution. That's when you see different organisms from the same ancestor now facing different environmental challenges, and in the bid to get some solution to these environmental pressures, they develop different evolutionary solutions and hence have these structures. It may or may not perform the same function. Like the humans, the upper limb in humans is used to manipulate objects. So the function is quite different from what you have for the dog and horse that use their forelimbs to run around. Then when you look at the limbs of the bat and bird and seal, they are used for flying. So the functions is the same for the bat, bird, and seal, but quite different from what you have for human, and also different from what you have for the dog and horse. So homologous structures may or may not perform the same function. Vestigial structures. Vestigial structures are anatomical features that are still present in an organism, although often reduced in size, even though they no longer serve a function. A vestigial structure is a biological structure that has lost a major ancestral function and is usually drastically reduced in size. Examples of vestigial structures are the human tailbone, that's the coccyx, the human appendix, the whale's pelvis, and even the pelvic bone of the snake. All these are vestigial structures. So in comparative anatomy, you tend to compare both analogous and homologous structures as well as the vestigial structures among the animals. In this case, we're talking about comparative vertebrate anatomy. Now the question is, how does comparative anatomy prove evolution? Does comparative anatomy prove evolution? Of course, one of the strongest forms of evidence that buttresses evolution is comparative anatomy, because comparing structural similarities of organisms helps one to determine their evolutionary relationships. Organisms with similar anatomical features are assumed to be relatively closely related evolutionarily, and they are assumed to share a common ancestor. Just by the wayside, aside from comparative anatomy, there are other evidences that also buttress evolution, like fossil records, embryology, and molecular biology. Thank you so much for listening. I hope to see you in my next video. Click on the like button, subscribe button, and the notification bell. Goodbye for now.